Now, why must there be 4 phases? And that Rabbi Ashlag discussed in volume number 1 on page Hay in the Hebrew edition, and in the English edition. Do I have my finger on it?
Emanation.
Okay. On page 70 in the old edition, it's another number. It's another number in the newer edition. In the newer edition, it would be no, it is the same. Page 70. Okay. So on page Hay in the Hebrew edition, not of the entrance, but in the original text, "V'tamachir shel daled madregot hu ki haratzon lekabel hanal hinehu nichlal tekef im ha'itpashtuta o me'ashoresh." We understand from volume number 1 that the internal energy intelligence of light is the sharing aspect, and it is to the exclusion of any desire to receive, because we have made one premise, we've laid down one hypothesis, that the light is all-inclusive, and therefore it lacks nothing. And if it lacks nothing, that goes without saying that there could be no desire to receive if one does not lack. And that was the premise that was established in volume number 1.
Where are we in the English here? Someplace.
Okay, right. And so you might say we can begin from page 69. Page 69. Now, the way we can, inasmuch as we have no comprehension of the light itself, and we can't refer to it with a name, even though we give it a name light, but we must understand we've only given it the name light so as to permit us to have something that we can compare the essence, the energy force of Hashem, if you want to call it that. But this energy force called the desire to share, desire to impart, this can never be revealed because, as I said, in our limited frame of reference, because of the body, we have no comprehension. The only way we have comprehension is by its becoming manifest. How can it become manifest? By the energy intelligence of the desire to receive, of the Ratzon Lekabel. It is the only way that energies become manifest, by an intelligence called the desire to receive. This is also likened to the desire to share, and the Creator created a desire to receive, because if there was no desire to receive, then actually his desire to share could never become manifest. So the thought to share must have immediately included an aspect of a desire to receive. But we understand that this desire to receive that became immediately manifest, this desire to receive, was not one that was voluntary. There are two aspects of desire to receive. There is one that is voluntary and one that is involuntary. Well, be compared to a man sleeping, or a man unconscious, a man in a coma, and he's fed intravenously. Is he being fed? Yes. Is he conscious? No. Can you say there is a sharing? Yes and no. There is a sharing taking place. Can you say the man desires like we desired the air? No. He's not even conscious of it. In fact, because he's in a coma state, he may just as well be prepared to die. If he didn't eat, for all intents and purposes, there would be nothing that would say, give me. So there is no activity on the part of the desire to receive in that state of consciousness. So we observe a state of sharing, but not necessarily a state of a desire, or hishtokukut, a desire to receive. So we have two aspects in receiving. One is receiving, which may not be referred to as the energy intelligence of the desire to receive. In other words, that's still part of like the light. The light likes to be somewhere. It wants to be somewhere. Of course, the ultimate objective of any sharing is that you can observe the recipient is saying, I enjoy what I've gotten. If you give something and you don't have that kind of response, you almost feel like you haven't even given. There is no sharing. So obviously sharing is bound up with a desire, an energy intelligence of a desire to receive. The mere fact that you feed someone is not necessarily sharing. That's how bread of shame came about. That we're not always conscious about. We keep taking and taking and taking. Ultimately, something's got to give. Why? Because the rule of sharing and receiving is the circular concept. There's got to be a desire to receive, and there's got to be, at the same time, a circle. Sharing in return, which is the circular concept which you're all familiar with. So we distinguish between the energy intelligence of desire to receive and receiving, which you might almost say is not even separate and distinct from the sharing.
Involuntary.
That's what we call an involuntary kind of receiving, which means that the energy intelligence of sharing hasn't even left its own space. Is that correct? When can you consider as the energy intelligence of sharing becoming manifest? When there is hishtokukut, when there is an intense desire to receive that. But if there is no intense desire to receive, like someone in an unconscious state, can you say there's a sharing? No. Or if the person doesn't even want it, but he feels obligated, he must take it. He's not in a state of desire to receive, which is an energy intelligence, which is the only kind of energy intelligence which makes sharing manifest. So we see these two aspects. We call it voluntary or involuntary. I'd rather refer to it as a conscious desire to receive as opposed to an unconscious or involuntary desire to receive. And as long as there is an involuntary desire to receive, and that means also that the vessel hasn't reached the stage of activity. One in a coma state, hasn't reached or achieved the level of desire to receive. So he's in a passive state. There is no activity on the part of the vessel. And so long as there is no activity on the part of the vessel, there is no sharing. There is no sharing, without repeating it again. So the rule of it now is that sharing depends upon the energy intelligence of a desire, a conscious desire to receive, then both become manifest. And if there is no conscious energy intelligence of a desire to receive, there is no manifestation of the light. There is no manifestation of the light. Another rule we're going to learn that we'll always forget, I guess, is what comes first. The energy intelligence of the desire to receive, or the energy intelligence of the desire to share. To share comes first. That means, if we can only ingrain that, embed that in our minds, that which we have received was not that which we worked for. It was a thing that kind of almost impelled us to want to receive. And it created within us a desire to receive, but not that I suddenly have a desire to receive for this or that, and therefore the this and that becomes my possession, but rather the this and that decided to share this itself of the this and that to me, and therefore I now desire it. That destroys a big ego trip, because it almost tells us that we're in a state of robotic consciousness, that we have no free will.
Can you say it one more time? So just repeat that last line.
Okay. This almost indicates that we are in a state of robotic consciousness, that any desire that we might have has already been predetermined by something called this or that wants to share, wants to be where I am, meaning not with my physical body, but with my intelligence of a desire to receive, and therefore it stimulates my desire to receive for that. Therefore, I was not the originator of the desire to receive, but rather the desire to share triggered and initiated my thought process, which says that I'm a robot. That anything, and what is human activity? Why does Chaim go to his store every day? Because he loves the store, or he'd rather sit here and study? No, he's got to make a living. There's other aspects that the store can provide him with his needs. Like we all must work, and we're not here to say human activity should cease just with study. We know that is only 10% of what the purpose of being here is all about. 90% is human activity, no matter which form it takes. So we're not here to negate Chaim's going to the store. However, what we are concerned with is that it appears that my desire for whatever initiated or originates my activity. And for what we're saying here now is that not my desire for anything initiates human activity, but rather there is this and that out there that says, I want you to get this feeling of desire for me. That's telling us again there is no ego. Because anything that I have acquired, someone made me turn into this predetermined course of activity. And so we'll be left with shortly then, are we really, as Newton said, a predetermined universe? And that's why quantum destroyed that, thank God, and said, no, there's even random in the universe. But for 300 years, the world assumed the concept of predeterminism. Ein bechira. Where did it come from? From what we're discussing right now. What came first? So we're not discussing Newton, who came 300 years ago. We're discussing something that may have happened endless billions of light years ago, called the energy intelligence of a desire to share, and that prompted a desire to receive. Okay? And we have made the distinction between a conscious desire to receive or an unconscious desire. Chochma is called the unconscious desire to receive. It receives. There is an element of receiving, called ratzon lekabel, desire to receive, but it's not the desire to receive that originates from the vessel, but that desire to receive originated from where? From the light. If this is not clear, you could never understand all that we have discussed in volume number 2, because while it seems that we've got it down pat, this precedes any understanding of this, of volume 2 until volume 16.
You said it's a passive state of receiving.
That's right.
It's just like the water just running through the pipe.
That's right. Therefore, it's called extension. Why is it called the first extension? It's merely an extension of the desire to share. It's an extension, meaning the desire to share now is found somewhere else. But what is the dominant energy intelligence of that phase? It's a new phase now, right? The intravenous is now. What's that?
Like the contact between the light and the vessel. That's the
right.
It's like the
kind of, but
the twilight zone.
That's right.
You can't
That's
say
exactly
what it
is.
It just is.
It is. We call it an extension. It pashtut. It's the first extension of what? Of the light. We can't say it's a manifestation of the light, because the only time you have manifestation of the light is when there is a conscious desire to receive. In stage 1, phase 1, called Chochma, we even have a name for it, and we'll understand where the word Chochma, wisdom, came from. Why do we refer to this state as wisdom? But in any event, this state is called Chochma. We have a name for it. It's a metaphysical state. But we must understand that in every development, when we see an actualization of energy, of force, it went through the first stage called Chochma. There was a passive, an involuntary, not meaning involuntary, meaning against its will, but rather it was not the energy intelligence of an active desire to receive. It was not an active state of desire to receive. That is called wisdom. It also is parallel with the world called Olam Atzilut. Olam Atzilut. The world of emanation. The world of emanation. Atzilut. First of all, in Hebrew, the word Atzilut means etzel, close by. The reason it's called Olam Atzilut, because there is no activity on the part of the vessel. Well, obviously there's a vessel now, right? We look at this human being in the hospital that, let's say, has approached the stage of being a vegetable. For all intents and purposes, this is a dead man. But the life functions still seem to be there. But there is nothing that we can associate this body with a human being. He's unconscious.
It's unbelievable.
No desire.
It's unbelievable. Just to think about it. It's like, here it is. I mean, what do you do with it? It's just there.
That's right. It's the same way as when Adam was formed, and then he breathed life into him. Here's the body. So what? A body without an energy intelligence is useless. That's one of the lessons we should learn from someone in an unconscious state. There's a body, non-functional, no activity. No activity, not even, we refer to that individual as a vegetable. Even a vegetable has activity, expands, moves away even though it's connected to the root, but it spreads out. It breathes in and breathes out. So does this body breathe in and breathe out, but that's the extent of it. It does not move. There is no activity at all. A vegetable, there is activity.
Rabbi, would you say that people in mental institutions are in this kind of a state too?
No, I sometimes wonder whether they are not in an altered state of consciousness, and just that most of us, unfortunately, have no comprehension. Certainly not physicians, and they don't know how to deal with it. So that when someone is not in your frame of reference, what's the best thing to do with them? Lock them up.
No, what I mean is that they have.
I heard that from a psychiatrist who was the head of the one of the departments in Creedmoor, and left. She came to the realization that these people should be on the outside, maybe we should be on the inside.
But I mean that in some sense some of them just have all of this and they don't know what to do with it.
Did she go in? Did she go in?
I'm not yet.
Good.
Maybe today, but not yet.
That's good. We did the Pulano.
It was done?
And it was incredible. Is it? Why do we call it wisdom? Why did the Kabbalists give it a name, wisdom? What's wisdom about it? Inactivity? Unconscious? No self? And the answer is, that's exactly it. It was just light. Now there was a being, an entity, but it was not an entity with its limiting, diverse aspect of light, because the light, we said before, was all-inclusive. It contains everything. And the fact that there was an extension, like the arm is an extension of the individual. Sometimes thought, a book of an individual, is an extension. It means it doesn't have to be connected to you, but it's an extension. The vessel here, called wisdom, is an extension. It's not the light, it's not me, but it's an extension. You feel my presence there. That's called extension. This state, because of its inactivity, because it does not act like most people in mental institutions at that lowest level of animal desire, but rather it's it, or maybe he or she, depends which psychiatrist you talk to, is flying. Meaning it's removed from what?
From the bondage of the body.
That's right. It does not feel itself confined within a body or a vessel. The vessel has almost no hashpa'ah, no influence. It's just free. Is that free? Yeah. Because freedom means freedom of want, of desire. What's freedom? What's freedom? Nothing in this world that I need. That was the state, incidentally, of the Jew on Mount Sinai. That's death. What does death mean? Death means that there is still something missing. So death occurs. So therefore the Gemara says when a person dies, he still hasn't filled half of his belly. Most people die in having not been fulfilled. I say most, speaking in terms of 99.9999%, have not been fulfilled at the end. This is called wisdom. Why is it called wisdom? Because it's all-inclusive. It's almost like the light, which is all-inclusive. Therefore, when we discuss a person, we say he's a chacham, he's a man of wisdom. What we're in effect saying is he sees Ezeu chacham haro et anolad. He sees past, present, and future. All is one, because that's the light. So therefore, but that is a state. It's a state of inactivity on the part of the vessel. And that was phase one.
Would you say it's the presence
Of the light.
Of the light, yes.
Yes.
Strictly just
Strictly presence.
No mud.
No mud. Okay. That's right. That's right.
It's like the water, isn't it?
No haze, no maze.
Yeah. No attachments, no involvement, no...
That's right. It's just clear. It's all-encompassing. Wait a sec, but how could something be all-encompassing so it includes all that maze? No, it includes everything but the mud. Meaning, it includes all space of light, and light is everywhere. So it encompasses everything. And the further removed, obviously, only means we've gotten closer to the desire to receive, which is the opposite of the desire to share. So that is stage one.